But
No,
nevertheless,
he
now
does.
my father-in-law, it is a very devout Catholic. He's in church every Sunday when it's open, when it hasn't been shut down by COVID. He counts money. He does his best to live his Christian lifestyle and certainly invests in things so much. And with that as his background, you might wonder what the wholesome family entertainment was growing up in my wife's house. And she just found it so oddly interesting and completely almost contradictory. But she, of course, sat around and watched James Bond movies with her entire family, including her father. And this is a man, he's got a good wry sense of humor. There's no two ways about it. Like, he really does like laughing it up, and he does, and he definitely gets body, and he definitely gets blue. So I guess I can't be too surprised, but still, I look back on it, and you look back on the late 50s, early 60s. Now, you get in the US, you're looking at a time where things were so sexually repressed. Lucy couldn't, it was revolutionary for saying she was pregnant on TV, right? We were sitting there, and, it's an amazing thing in and of itself that you can say the word, she said the word pregnant, which was, or they admitted that she was pregnant, which of course implied that she had sex. And you could not do that on TV. But one of the mainstays of entertainment at that time was James Bond movies, right? Where the hero and the male in it fucks a swath through all of Europe, right? It's just expected right from the get-go. In Dr. No, he's having sex. Like, we know it. They don't show it graphically, but it's going down, like the whole thing. She's in the bikini. She comes out with the knife. And my wife always found it so interesting that it in point, in fact, none of this behavior was going to be encouraged in the home, and they were in church every Sunday. But she would sit there without, and without a second glance, sit there in front of the TV, and a woman comes on, and her name is Pussy Galore. In the 60s, like, there was not, like, we knew what you were saying. I'm sorry, like, that one wasn't like, it's not subtle then, it's subtle now. It's just, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, no, I hate to say it, but pussy actually kicked into a different gear right around the time we were born.
Fair enough. I will give you that. And I know that, my father used to talk about, having food on my puss, and he didn't mean that. He meant my face, right?
People call cats pussies all the time. It was literally pussycat.
Yeah, but still, we knew what they were saying in the James Bond movie. I'm just saying.
I'm just pointing out, when they wrote it and when it went to press, it wasn't exactly the same thing.
That's one of them double entendres. That's what they call a double entendre.
All right, let me back up. Maybe the writers knew they were being double entendre, but the only reason why it got released is because of how the word pussy was actually accepted in the mainstream. It was not the same connotation it is now.
Yes, and we're trying to take it back from a certain asshole who just got out of office here today, doing our best anyway. So took a perfectly good word and, man, messed that up. But it was interesting that, not only, like, you also take it aside the sex. There's just, there is a pretty, for the day, and then going more and more so, a substantial amount of violence. And once again, this is the mainstay of family entertainment. And now we're starting to look at it, and as we're trying to move the genre forward, right? Bond almost becomes its own genre, right? It's an action movie. It's a spy movie. He's not really a spy, and I'll get into that in a second. He's a spy. He's LARPing, right? Like, he's totally LARPing out there because, especially in the earlier films and the Roger Moore days in particular, which is where I came into it when we were born, it was a total LARP, right? The entire movie, they'd give him a gadget, and then you could tell they wrote the gadget first, and then they had to write their way backwards from there, like he had the watch. How's he going to use the watch? Right? He's got the car. How's he going to use the car? Like, they always, at some point, especially by that point, it become formulaic enough that they had to write their way back out of it. But now we're talking about making Bond a woman. So really, what's, a lot of us are kind of wondering, what's that going to mean? You have this certainly an expression of a patriarchal society, right? Of a man's man who comes on in and, smokes cigars and has his vodka martini shaken, not stirred, which of course nowadays everybody does that. But back when it started, that was such a sexy, such a avant-garde way to have your martini. Like, my God, he shook it up. And he's gonna have sex. Oh my God. So you have this kind of pinnacle of that idea, so much so in as the genre went on, Matt Damon wanted to point out that that his character of Jason Bourne was the opposite of James Bond. That he started with he starts with a girlfriend and then she dies and he's still loyal to her memory and all that. He wants to sort of set himself apart from that. But how are we going to look at that as a woman? Like, and it's an interesting question. One I obviously can't answer yet because the movie hasn't come out, but I'm curious. I'm particularly curious because Bond is to introduce everyone to a film school concept. And I do go back to my roots here in film school. Bond is saturated in the male view, of filmmaking, which, to go back to, well, you can see it in many Bond movies, of course, when he just first comes into the room and the camera kind of pans around and, comes in on the Bond girl, right? It's not only taken from the point of view of the filmmaker, but it's the point of view of Bond. It's the point of view of men. Really typified by Alfred Hitchcock, who was, a hell of a filmmaker, but really a creepy dude. And in movies like Vertigo, great example of it. And women sure as hell know it because they've been subjected to it plenty of times. Where I think the one I think about the most is in Vertigo, when later on Jimmy Stewart has transformed Kim Novak back into the Kim Novak that he initially met. And she walks in the bar and he goes the camera down from her feet all the way up, slowly up, gliding through her legs, hips, right, center bust, and then finally landing on her face. And everything is just like the way the character wants. So Bond is so saturated in that. A question I pose to sort of the world, and once again, is that can there be, there are signs of the female gaze going on, but it's a different emphasis. And what is that going to bring to the Bond franchise? Because the idea being that, I don't know if they'll use a female director, but the idea being that women will view the world differently and will approach the world differently than men in such a context. So some theories, and these are theories, right? This is film theory, which is kind of dry shit. I can't lie. It's about more hands and lips and necks and outfits, right? But one thing that is impressive, and by the way, why I would argue, and I want to swing back around to it in the end of the episode, why women would make better spies, is that as a woman, as that female gaze is coming up, a lot of information is coming in, right? We all know it. We've all experienced it from our wives of like, hey, he's wearing that shirt again. He only wears that shirt like 3 times a week. Just all of the various stages as coming in. Oh, those shoes and that hem of those pants and those particular socks, that Argyle. But I know he has a hole in that sock. Right? Will that translate? And can we bring that into the Bond oeuvre, to use a wonderful French term, right, Greg? You can always correct me on my French over there, being the closest we got to the speaker. And what is that going to bring to it? The other inevitable question that we face is, how will we handle, if we're going to handle sexuality, right? Is America ready for a woman who's truly in control of her sexuality, ready to use it in the same way? Would they use it in the same way? Ought they use it in the same way? I don't necessarily know. If you just turn a woman sexuality into like that of the patriarchy and like the man, is that really going to work? Does that really make a lot of sense? But is it still Bond then? These are, that's the kind of crux of it. And you still have, like I say, do we want to keep her as the same kind of quote unquote spy as Bond, right? Is it going to be about using the gadgets? Is it going to be using the gimmicks and the violence to achieve the means? Or is it more like a woman might actually spy? Are we going to actually turn Bond into a spy movie? Or are we going to keep it in the action genre? So I really think while it's a straightforward idea and an idea that I do believe's time has come, I really want to see what's done with it. But since we've trodden over this road so many times, what is it going to mean to us? And what is it going to mean to the genre? And I think if it's done right, it'll be very interesting. But I do also think it could entirely change the genre as we've gotten used to knowing it. So I'd be interested. I'm kind of bringing that as grist to the mill. I also just wanted to throw out that, my wife, going back to the original Pussy Galore joke, and all that, we kind of joked back and forth about what the male equivalent would be as, what the male equivalent would be or female equivalent would be. So, I, of course, jumped to something about Long Johnson and the inevitable dick joke, right? Came right with it. But she just shook her head. She said, no, that's a dude, right? That's entirely her point. It's like, you're a dude writing for a woman then, and we won't say that. So I looked at her, I said, so does the dishes would be the name of folds the laundry. She's like, nah, you're getting it. And she looked right at me without missing a beat and said, pays child support. So there's the turn on, baby. That's it. Men, giant vagina. Women, pays child support. I guess that's what I took out of that conversation. I'm a simpleton, though. We all know that. We know I'm not very smart. So with that, and with that grist for the mill, I wanted to turn it over to Brother Greg here and see what he had to say, bringing it into our idea of what's it going to be like in a world where James Bond is a woman.
That's that. I mean, a lot of that is very true. And I thought of like a lot of the exact same things. Like, it really does depend on what they decide and how they decide they want to take it, right? Like, could you make something, you could turn it into more like Jason Bourne just with one. But that brings us to, I mean, how much of the Bond formula do you want to stick to? I mean, with the Daniel Craig movies, they stepped away from he was less suave, he was less campy, there was less of the Bond formula with Q and Moneypenny and all of that shit. And people weren't huge fans. They want suave, campy James Bond. And that's why, no, I don't consider them real spy, like, Hunt for Red October and Bourne. So, no, the Jason Bourne movie. No, they're not real spy movies. They're not. They're Bond movies. They're absolutely Bond movies. There's been over 20 of them. And the majority of them are the absolute same formula. So they're Bond movies. So the question is, will they want to stick to that formula? From my point, I want to start off first and foremost, we do not kink shame. Not everyone's human skin fits properly, and life is too short to not get off righteously. So it's important to say we do not kink shame. That being said, the question of objectification has been brought up a lot lately, and I think a healthy amount of objectification is healthy and necessary. Saying objectification on the face of it automatically means a degree of malice, I think is unfair. We objectify everything. We objectify spirituality, we objectify our futures, we objectify death. Objectification is pretty much the only way most people understand most of the world. Because once you get away from objects, you get closer to concepts. And concepts, good fucking luck. You're going to be there all day trying to make that happen. So objectification on its own, no. I don't think men would so much have a problem with that. I think because, Michael B. Jordan and Jason Statham don't take their shirts off for me. It's not like, I'm up all night wondering if Jason Momoa would bang me. Wouldn't he? No, it's not for my sake. So that's one degree of what we're going to call objectification. The objectification, that the part of it that men would not like